Welcome to The Girl Herd,
where we talk Texas football.
and a bunch of takes you probably already heard.
But not from us.
So welcome back to the Coaches Series. We're super excited about our guest for this week. He's a Longhorn alum and was heavily involved on campus during his time at Texas. He was a student equipment manager for the football team, served as the esteemed mascot HookEm, and was on the Longhorn band. But seeing how this is the Coaches Series, we do have to mention his time as a high school football, soccer, and cross-country coach. So, Chris, welcome to the Girl Herd.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm honored and grateful to be here.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your background as a high school football coach.
I grew up in San Antonio and I went to John Marshall High School. If y'all familiar with Priest Holmes, he is an alum of John Marshall High School. He was there. He started high school the year after I graduated. So I got to come back, every now and then I'd come into town and watch him play. And that was in high school. And that was a big deal. He went by Anthony Holmes back then, but Priest is his first name. And of course he went on to great things at UT. And that was a lot of fun back in the day to watch that. No, I, grew up playing sports and was a soccer player, a runner, and played a little football, not a whole lot, but did those other things. But always enjoyed college football and high school football and being around it. And so I got to UT and I'd been in band as well in high school and made the Longhorn band. But when I was there, I was the band kid that was more about the game. Band got me into the game. So I was more about watching the ball game. I'm like, oh, I'm here on a business trip. Oops, sorry, I'm getting in the game free. So got to know Coach McWilliams. David McWilliams was the head football coach at Texas when I was there. I was there from 1987 to 1991. And I originally wanted to be a sportscaster is what I wanted to do. Then I started talking to people and the sportscasters have worse hours than coaches do, if you can believe that. They get there, they start setting up about 2:00 in the afternoon at the stadium while the players and staff are showing up, and they have to stay till like 10 at night to do their newscast. They do their two newscasts because they're out there watching us practice and stuff. So, but I was always fascinated with the cheer staff and with the mic man at the football games. I thought I want to be the mic man. That guy, he gets to be excited and fire everybody up. And I was always a high motor guy. So I tried out for the mic man. Well, I didn't make it, but somebody told me, hey, we need somebody to be the mascot. One of the guys that's going to be the mascot dropped out. So you want to try out for that? I'm like, yeah, sure. So tried out for HookEm and got picked. And that was the end of my Longhorn band days. And so I was HookEm for a year. And of course, doing that, got to know the cheerleaders, got to know the Palm Squad, got to know a lot of the athletes. I completely changed my major from communications to kinesiology. Decided I wanted to go into coaching. And then ran into Coach McWilliams on the elevator there in Belmont. And he and I had talked a couple of other times before meeting up on campus and stuff. And I was like, I've got about a year and a half of school left and I really need some experience. I played sports, but that was a long time ago. And I was like, do you all need any help? Do you need any help on staff? And he's like, well, go talk to Coach Teddy Gray. He's our head equipment manager. And I talked to Coach Gray, and next thing you know, August 1990, I started out as one of the equipment managers, and it just so happened to be the year that we won the 1 year in my 5 seasons at Texas, because I stayed an extra semester. We only had 2 winning seasons, and one of them was that year we won the Southwest Conference. So I was like, oh, you just needed me on staff. That's the problem.
I was lucky charm.
Yeah.
So yeah, and all the other guys are like, really? Seriously? We've been slaving away, getting our tail kicked for 3 years, and you walk in and bam, conference championship. I'm like, what can I say? Yeah, no, I had very little to do with that, but it was a great experience. Got to do a lot of traveling, got to be on the sideline. I'd already been to Texas OU 3 times with the band, and that was cool enough. That was the greatest thing I'd ever seen from a sports, from a sports venue event marching down the tunnel to the big crowd and everybody, and the dummy Sooners, telling us to buy a football team, waving their money at us. And because they were beating up on us this first couple of years, but being on the sideline for it, being in the locker room, being on the sideline for it, traveling with the team, all that kind of stuff, man, there's nothing like it. I made a whopping $4.25 an hour minimum wage back in 1991 to do that job, and I would do it again. Best job I ever had was being on football staff. But doing that helped me break into coaching. I had connections and had my first coaching job at Lake Travis High School there in Austin. Now, back then, Lake Travis High School was a little bitty 3A school back in 1993. And they were a 2-8 football team, and they weren't even a very good 2-8 football team. But started out there, and in the coaching business, you move around a lot. And so I went from there to Bridgeport, which is a little bitty town northwest of Fort Worth in the county of the Wise, Tornado Land, Tornado Alley out there. Terrell, which is near Dallas, east of Dallas. Mildred, the smallest school I was ever at was a Class A school called Mildred in Corsicana, just outside of Corsicana. Colleyville Heritage. So I went from Mildred, little bitty Mildred, to Colleyville Heritage, which is over there near DFW Airport. Then moved down to Round Rock, opened up Stony Point High School. I was a Stony Point Tiger for a year. Then went to Austin High for a while. I was a Maroon. Then went to Leander. Hutto. I was a Hutto Hippo.
Oh, okay.
I was a Hippo, yes. And then my kids' mom and I split up, and they moved it to the Houston area. And so I found myself in New Caney. I had no idea I'd never heard of New Caney, Texas. They had a guy that played Major League Baseball, actually briefly played quarterback for Texas, but also ended up playing Major League Baseball. Adam, golly, what was his last name? I don't remember. Anyway, went to Angleton, which is south of Houston, then to Dayton, which is where I met Frank. And all the other good people with the Dayton Broncos. And then one more year, I had a chance to go to Summer Creek High School in Humble ISD, because that was the same school district that my kids are in, Humble ISD. It was the first time I'd been in the same school district with either one of my children since my daughter was in kindergarten back at Leander ISD. And so, and then I retired. COVID happened, and COVID school just wore me out. And so I was like, it's time to retire. And so I retired. And now I teach online school, and I was a soccer official this year, which was another adventure. So I got some of that karma back from how I mistreated some officials. We don't talk about that, but that was a great experience. And so now, and I'll tell you the toughest thing, though. Well, I say tough. I'm very proud of my children, but despite my best efforts to raise them right, my daughter is a senior at Texas A&M University, and my son will be attending Blinn. He's at San Jacinto this summer. He'll be at Blinn in the fall, but he's applying again to go to hopefully be accepted to Texas A&M in the spring. So we're a house divided for sure.
How did that happen?
Well,
Being in
yeah,
Houston,
because they were my little Longhorns, especially my son. In fact, he's still holding on to his Longhorn fan, card, I guess you could call it. He's not giving it up easily. And I'm like, I go, dude, I said, and he's also, and I was born in Montgomery, Alabama. So I was an Alabama fan when I was a little kid, and with Bear Bryant, and of course, again, showing my age. And so he's also grown up to be a little Alabama fan with Coach Saban. And the other day he shows me a shirt he's wearing. It says, Alabama Crimson Tide on it. And I was like, okay. I go, that looks good. I said, he goes, yeah. He goes, my other half. And I go, your other half? He goes, well, it's more like 10% now. And he said, the rest of it's Texas and Texas A&M. I said, dude, what is it? 60-30 A&M, 70-20 A&M. He's like, that makes my head hurt. So I said, dude, here's what's going to happen. You're going to get to College Station, and you're going to be 100% Texas A&M. I said, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. You got to make your way. I said, I know I would be. I said, if I'd have gone there out of high school instead of going to UT, I probably would have been all about it. And I said, I'd be insufferable. I'd be one of those ags that's just as annoying as all get out, and we know they are. But you know, it's just I think it's just a better fit for them. Austin's kind of it's not, I hate to say this, it's just not the place that it was when I went there, and maybe not when you all went there. And College Station is just a little more, I say it's grown. It's, you know, crazy big now, but it's just a better fit for them and their personalities and plus it's only an hour and 10 minutes for me, and it's an hour and a half away from their mama. So, you know, we didn't have to twist their arms too hard to get them to stay close to home.
I just went to College Station this past weekend to go see George.
Did you?
And it felt weird because I hadn't been there since we played. I mean, you know, when we were playing each other, but at their old stadium. So seeing their new stadium, but
yes,
I mean, it looks very good. And Devin even was like, yeah, more intimidating. And I was like, yeah, definitely. It's
we
big.
got this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have no concerns about us winning the game, but their stadium has always been this force, like the way that it's just physically built. It is something that you respect for sure.
Yeah, we were walking walking through campus to go to the concert, and they were, of course, starting to do their chants. And I was with Aggies, but also non-Aggies, and all of the non-Aggies were like, really? Really? Even the Aggies were like, come on, don't embarrass yourselves today. Like, why are they whooping? Like,
It's a cult. It's a cult. I'm telling you.
So that's gonna be your son very soon.
Well, yeah. So my daughter is okay. So my daughter, she's one of the fish camp people. She's one of the co-chairs for fish camp. So she's like one of the head brainwashers.
Yeah, head brainwashers.
Yes, she's in charge of the brainwashing. I'm like, oh, no,
This
I'm
game's gonna be so fun for you guys.
Oh yes. Oh, I know. I'm just thinking about November going, oh, here we go. And no, I will not go and they won't want me there because they'll be sitting with the students and I'll have to behave myself. I'm embarrassed to say that I've accumulated some ag swag, I guess. Some Texas A&M gear. First it was just Texas A&M dad, you know, it's like I'll wear, it says dad on it. So,
yeah.
But you know, I've got a couple items that I will not, yeah, they're hidden. I will not bring out here just to support the kids, you know, for the time they're there. Now, once they graduate, that's it. It's on. There'll be some trash talking, I guarantee you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned so much about your college career, and I'm curious because I'm getting a sense of who you are. You're like, okay, I want to be around the football team. So I'm doing this, I'm doing that. What class was your high school in terms of classification of like 5A, 4A, 3A?
We were 5A, which
y'all were 5A.
back
Okay.
then, yeah, we didn't have 6A. So we were the biggest classification.
Exactly. Which is interesting to me considering you were doing band as well as sports at the same time.
Yes. So you can, if you were playing like football, that didn't last very long because band and football just at a big school like that, you can't. Well, I mean, they let them do it now, but back then you had to make your mind up, and I was already in the marching band, and our band was one of the best in the state of Texas. We went to every year to the state marching contest, and it was like people were like, oh, you know, what was the meme where, you know, we were really good at it. And football team back then, only 2 teams went to the playoffs, and we were always 3rd or 4th, which now we'd have gone every year, and it might have been a bigger deal. But now, don't get me wrong, still some of my dearest friends were on the football team. I was the guy in band that had more friends out of band than in the band. Sad to say, that's not entirely true. But we're all on Facebook now, and we all kid each other. But back then, I was like, you know, like I said, I was the guy in the stands that I was like, oh, we have to play. I want to cheer on the team. I want to, you know, my buddies are out there. And it always felt like I should have been out there. And during football practice, they'd have football practice on the next field over, and I'd be watching football practice. Hey, McComb, we got to do the next part. Oh, okay. But I did run track and cross country. Played soccer outside of school. Soccer had just started for the UIL the year before, and if you played soccer outside of school, you couldn't play for school. So I didn't play for school. Unfortunately, I should have. I should have played for school instead. Would have got out a lot cheaper. Let's put it that way. But yeah, back then you couldn't, if you played soccer outside of school, you couldn't play for school. So what else? I did student council. I did all kinds of stuff. I did a little bit of everything, not a whole lot of anything, I guess. What was that thing? An inch deep, mile wide? I think
Jack of all
it's
trades, master of none.
master of none. That's me. I'm still that way. I've been playing golf since I was in 7th grade, and I'm no better at it now than I was then.
I was about to say, do you know the term FOMO?
FOMO?
Yeah.
Nope.
Fear of missing out. I feel like that's you. You're like in the band practice, but looking at your football buddies, like, oh, I need to like see what's going on with the practice, and you're
right.
trying to be over here and over there. But it struck me how you said that you like went to Belmont and you're like, I want to be a part of this program. Like, put me in, coach, in terms of giving me a job. I'm curious your thoughts now, because it's gotten so much more competitive, like coaching landscape, coaching career, football path for folks. Like, what are your thoughts for people entering into that career path now? And like, what would you suggest to them? Because building your network is important, but like things are so different. You know, there's no more like handshake deals and that sort of culture.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up, because I would, for one, I would definitely not recommend going about it the way I did. I didn't have much of a, what's the word I'm looking for? I wasn't very disciplined in the way I pursued my career. I wasn't very patient. My thing was, if they're not going to promote me immediately, then I'm going to go find someone who will, because I was certified in science. So, well, and social studies, but first I knew if I knew teaching science, they'd have a hard time. They told us, don't just get certified in PE, get certified in a core subject. And they said math and science, that's where they have a hard time finding people. They said everybody teaches history. You know, all football coaches teach history, teach science or math. I was like, okay, well, I have a bachelor's science degree, so I'll go ahead and take the test. And I passed it first time. And so that was a door open for me for jobs that other guys couldn't get, because they weren't certified, and they didn't feel that there weren't hats that they could wear or jobs they could fill. Somebody, and I'll say it in a little bit. Somebody gave me some really good advice early in my career that I carried with me throughout. And I'll still, and the best advice I would tell anybody wanting to get into coaching now, and even somebody who's been in coaching, and really it's good for anything. But I remember a coach telling me one time, because he was doing a job that I thought, dude, did you draw the short straw? How'd you get this job, putting the water tree together for football? And he goes, let me tell you something, youngster. Take the job nobody else wants, and you'll always have one. I was like, oh, okay. So get certified in something like physics that not very many people can or want to teach. So I can teach physics and chemistry. Coach girls soccer. There's nobody lining up to do that. And a lot of the girls soccer coaches, you know, eventually drop out after a while. So they're looking for somebody. And I'm like, hey, I played soccer growing up, and I found I enjoy coaching the girls way more. Just suits my personality. I don't know. But I will tell a coach now, take the job no one else wants, or do the job no one else wants, and that nobody else can, and you'll always have one. You'll always have a job. And no one will be asking, and nobody will be telling you how to do it. Football coaches, unfortunately, there's a lot of guys still want to do that. And so it's harder to break in. It's harder to stay in. The job security is hard, because you get hired, but then the guy that hired you goes somewhere else, or he gets fired. Well, then the next guy comes in and wants to bring his people in, and they'll tell him, well, you can only bring in a couple. So he's going to do everything he can to run off who's there. Not by just necessarily being mean, but by giving you all kinds of duties and early meeting hours and late meeting hours to get people to want to leave, so that he can bring his own people in. Of course, he won't make them do that, because that's his guys. So, you know, there's, like you said, behind, you know, kind of deals are worked out and business is done. That isn't always the pretty part of the business, but you also have to be able to trust who you work for and who works for you. and that's all a part of it. But I think, you know what? I think any job's that way. I think anytime you're in a high competitive industry, and let's not kid ourselves, coaching is a kid business, but it's also a business. And, you know, I think football and basketball on the boys' side for sure are the two high money, high stakes, high pressure gigs. And so stuff's going to be handled a little bit different on that side of it than say, like I said, some, you know, cross country where, and don't get me wrong, cross country is my favorite sport to coach. And if you ask Frank, a dear friend of ours, Michael Asbill, Dayton High School, does a wonderful job with those kiddos, and he's from there, and you know, he'll be there his whole career because he's built that culture and that army. And I think that's another part of it. I think, well, I can go on and on, but finding a good place to be is better than promoting yourself. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
It's better to be an assistant at a good place than be the head guy at a place that's a little more tough on you.
Makes sense. So you talked a little bit about your career path not being so straight, and that you've coached multiple sports. Like, where did you get the style of coaching that you had throughout your career? Did you grab a piece here and there from all of your different experiences, or where did that come from?
It's funny you say that because the older I've gotten, the more I've the more when I started out, I coached the way I was coached, which in some ways is good, but in other ways, you know, when you grew up in the 70s and 80s, that's a lot different. I don't want to say culture, but it's a lot different style than the 90s, thousands, tens and 20s. I mean, we live in a different world, and we're talking two separate generations since then. And so, you know, my coaches and I will say my mom was my coach as far as at the house. Now, Dad actually coached me in soccer as well, and of course he was like all of us trying to figure it out back in the 70s because it was a new thing to us. But my mom and my coaches, just from an expectations, just there's no excuse not to do things right and bust your tail all the time and be the most enthusiastic, the hardest worker, even if you're not, especially if you're not the best athlete, biggest, fastest, strongest kid, then by golly, you better outwork them. And it's intense. And you can't always be that way. Not everybody's buttons are pushed that way. Not every kid responds to that. You look at coaches like a Nick Saban, who I loved Coach Saban. I'm sorry to see him retire, but I don't blame him. It was time. You know, he knew it was time, and he gets to play a lot more golf now, and so he's enjoying himself. And he, you know, he rants and raves at his players sometimes, but at the same time, you don't see what goes on during the rest of the week when he's got a great relationship with those guys. And you know, the players, they're on point and doing the best they can do to live up to that standard and exceed that standard. But at the same time, you know, there will be players that they'll interview, and they're like, yeah, well, when he chewed my tail that time, I had it coming. I was, you know, making a mistake over something that we went over, and you know, but the thing is, they can kid around with him too. And I can say I learned a lot of being at different places. I learned a lot of ways to do things, but I also learned a lot of ways how not to do things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'd like to think that I took the best of it pick the best from a lot of different ways. And so whenever I'm sitting in a room and somebody's having a hard time, you know, figuring out a problem, or maybe there's a kid that they can't figure out where to put them, I'm like, yeah, I remember back in, you know, 2003, we had a kid who was like that. And we found that if we put him here, he was able to help us on this situation. And that kind of became his job. And he took a lot of pride in it. And they're like, oh, well, okay, well, that's a great idea. I got to dig back in the file for things every now and then. But also, I think the older I've gotten, the less, yeah, you probably don't think so, but since I'm talking so much, but the older I've got, the less I say. I think Ben Franklin had a saying, better to keep your mouth quiet, stay quiet, and to have everyone think you're a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. I think that, and so let the youngsters, all the enthusiastic young coaches, try to figure it out, and then you say the one thing that they're like, "Oh, never thought of that." I'm like, "Oh yeah, you weren't in Terrell, Texas back in 1995, so how would you know?" It's you take a little bit. You hope to take the best out of everywhere you go, and help others navigate the speed bumps when they come along, because you've probably been in that situation and you know a way around it.
We want to talk about HookEm. Of course, you were HookEm
Okay.
in the past, and you said it was kind of like the early stages of HookEm. What was it like the first year? Was it?
I think they'd had a HookEm. I know they'd had one for a little while. Probably started in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. I did it in 89, 90. That was the one school year I did it. And it was the year that the Blanks, Mason Wright, ultimate scoring machine, Coach Pender's second year with the basketball team, and they ended up going to the Elite Eight. So it was a fun year. Like I said, I was the mascot, and the basketball team goes to unprecedented heights. Right place, right time. I know, but
Just have all the luck when you're
that's
in the right
right.
position.
Yes,
Yeah.
a charmed life. I don't know. I want to say they'd had a mascot probably for about 10 years, but the suit was nothing like it looks now. I mean, that is a corporate looking, professional, big time. I mean, it's funny because, HookEm will be on there and my son will go, "Oh, there you are." I go, "Yeah, it didn't look anything like that." And we didn't get to perform at the football games because the football game was reserved for Bevo. And so HookEm only did volleyball, basketball, men's and women's basketball, volleyball, and really that was it, other than to make appearances like at charity events and stuff. Some of the cheer and the Palm girls would be there, and HookEm would be there. But yeah, it was not near did not near as much exposure for old HookEm back then as now.
Yeah,
But
we
we
love HookEm. It was just National Mascot Day yesterday.
Hey, they should put that,
Today?
circle that on your calendar.
Yeah.
honestly,
It's you celebrate. Oh, I was thinking about it as I saw the post on social media. I was like, I wonder if each HookEm is like, that's me behind the mask.
That's right. Let me tell you, when he gets or he or she, could be a she,
Yeah, exactly.
gets camera time, I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's go. They get
stuffed with ice packs.
right. And lots of deodorant. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
The suit was so bad. They did an article in the paper. I got interviewed by John Mayer, and I don't know if he's still with the American Statesman anymore, but I got a phone call one day because, okay, so the suit smelled so bad. This is terrible. It smelled so bad. And there were two of us who did it. So there was a guy, a tall kid, a buddy of mine, who we would switch off. He would do some games and I would do the other games. And he's like 6 feet tall and I'm 5'8". I'm a little dude. So the suit fits us differently. Well, it had this head. I don't know how to, like, here's my cowboy hat. Okay, so imagine this is the head. It would hang down like this. The nose would be down here.
Oh my goodness.
And the little grid to see out of, like if this is Bevo's head, the horns are sticking out here and it's got two big eyes on the sides. The nose is down here, and in the middle of the face would be the grid for us to see out of. Well, it would be hanging down like this. So in order for me to see, I'd have to hold the head up. So I have to walk around holding my chin up so that I could see where I was going. I mean, I was blind. We would laugh. We would say, we're using the force to walk around. And one time I bumped into a referee, like during a timeout, and he went off on me right there in the middle of the court, in the middle of the Irwin Center. And I was so mad because it was totally accidental. I couldn't see anything. But I will share this story. So we're playing Arkansas. And the day before, that article came out. This guy had interviewed me. He was like, okay, what's up with the suit? What's up with the HookEm suit? It looks terrible. And I said, I don't know. I didn't order it. That's just what they gave us to wear. And it turns out that they ordered a low budget suit for HookEm Longhorn suit. And they we're getting ready to play Arkansas, and it's a big, huge game for the Southwest Conference Championship. And we're playing in Austin, and he writes this article about how bad the suit is. And so, and we hadn't even done a game in like 2 or 3 weeks because the suit was in such bad shape. So they give us a basketball uniform to wear over one of the players' uniforms, a red shirt player's uniform to wear over it because it had holes in it. I had put it in the washer and the dryer to try to make it smell better, but all it did was shrink the.
Oh no.
So I'm wearing it, and you know, the Arkansas Razorback, this is back in the Southwest Conference days, he's there and I can't see. And so all of a sudden I know it's quiet in the Irwin Center. No one's making any noise. And I'm like, why are we so quiet? I thought, well, it's a commercial or something. Well, what had happened was one of their players went down and he was hurt. So you know how everybody gets quiet. Well, I had no idea because I can't see, but I had this big towel and I'm like, well, we need to get people excited. And so I walk over behind the Razorback mascot and I pop him with a towel. Pow, pow. And he's like, what the heck? And then I run off and people in the stands go, get him, Bevo. Of course, they're calling me Bevo because they don't know. Get him, Bevo, beat him, kick his butt, Bevo. And it wasn't until I watched film of the game later that one of their players was hurt. And here I am popping their mascot with a towel. Oh, it was embarrassing. We end up losing in overtime. And anyway, so yeah, that's my HookEm story because I couldn't see. Embarrassing.
I always think about it. I mean, when Angie and I were on Palm, we also had, you know, several mascots and knew, you know, like they were all different sizes. I always wondered that. I don't know. I need to ask them if they were ever not able to see out of
One size fits all.
Yeah, no. Well, and this wouldn't have fit him either, I don't think, because he said he was like, I'm having to use the force. I can't see because it doesn't even look like a longhorn. It looked like a kangaroo. It had this big head and it just flopped over. And oh, it was terrible. I don't know. I've tried to search and Google and see if I could find a picture of the suit, but it was so bad. I don't think anybody wanted to take a picture.
Erased all evidence.
They did. Kids would pull the tail off. It was fun. I had a ball. I had a blast and met a lot of great people, but it was just like one disaster after another that whole year. As much fun as my junior year of college was. I was in 17 magazine. That was pretty cool. I got my when I wasn't in the suit, it was me at the OU pep rally. I was in the band and the cheerleaders were there like, hey, come here, be in the picture with us. And I'm like, but I'm not in the suit. Who cares? And so 2 months later, I'm in 17 magazine, you know, with the cheerleaders and the Palm Squad. But that was I guess the perk I got out of it was friends from home. What are you doing in 17 magazine? I was like, what? When did that happen? Oh, 2 months ago. Yes. So yeah, a lot of HookEm. It was fun. You couldn't tell anybody though. I mean, is it still that way? Is whoever's HookEm, can they say whether or not they're the mascot?
I mean, I'm trying to think because like we knew, but I think it's right though. They don't really talk. I mean, you never take the head off. You don't talk about it. You want to know it's like all different people. But
it's they keep it on the down low. They keep it anonymous. And of course, I want everybody to know that I'm HookEm, but
frolicking around in the suit.
Yeah, but you get to act the fool. You get to be totally crazy and nutty and do all kinds of funny stuff, and they expect it. You know, you have no inhibitions when you're the mascot because you get to do, you get to body. I don't know if they still do it, but we would body surf. They would pass me up in the stands. Now they forget. They don't look behind to see if anybody's at the top of the stands, and so they pass you. Yeah, so I got dumped on my head on top of the fact that I couldn't see. I get dumped on my head at the top of the stand. Oh yeah, it was hazardous.
A very
in your face.
I know all of my faces. I'm just super concerned hearing all of Chris, we didn't even ask you, when was the last time you went to a game at DKR?
Let's see. My son and I went to see him play Rice. I think it's 2 years ago. Obviously, I used to go a lot more when I lived there. Now it's like trying to get tickets and trying to. I mean, I get it because I'm a Letterman. I get one free ticket, and I can buy a day ticket or whatever. But it's almost easier to get them through game, although Gamecast or SeatGeek or something, although it's expensive. But yeah, I've not been. What I do now is I'll go to the Texas X's. I'll go to here in Midtown. I'll go down there and with the Houston Texas X's, or to Katy with the Katy Texas X's, and watch the game at a big party. Actually, here in Tomball, we don't have or Cypress, we don't have a Texas X's group that meets over here at Lil Woodrow's on 249. So they were talking to me, hey, you're the guy to get it started. I'm like, who better than HookEm to do it? I'm like, yeah, I haven't worn the suit since 1990. Okay. And you're not getting me in it. So I might be doing that this fall, possibly. We'll see.
I know some people that live over there, including my parents. They would be there with you. Go for it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. Well,
Same
because
with my parents.
Yeah.
Midtown, I mean, Midtown's just, it's, if you don't live inside, if you don't live in the, what is it? If you don't live in the 713, if you're not inside the loop, you're not inside 610, it's like you're a, lower class citizen or something,
That's correct.
Oh, you're in
That's
Cypress.
Yeah.
You're in Spring. That doesn't count. Like, what the heck? So no, I may need to do that. May need to start the old, I guess now would be the time to talk and set that up. But yeah, keep your eyes and ears open. There might be a sighting, to come out of retirement.
We got to get you a better suit though.
Just the head. I'll be like Lee Corso and just wear the head.
There you go.
I'll do that. Wow. Gosh, I hadn't thought about that in a minute. The kids and I were in Longhorn Limited, down there in Belmont, in the the store where they have the stuff, and so we're up there, and my daughter, she goes, because we went to the Tech game Thanksgiving. It's been a few years ago now, and she goes, "Do you get a discount because you were HookEm?" And I said, I go, "No." And I said, although it wouldn't hurt to ask. And so I tell them, I go, "So do I get my mascot discount?" They're like, "What?" And I go, "Yeah, I was HookEm back in 1989. And they said, "Can we have your autograph?" I'm like, "What?" They go, "Yeah, we want to take your picture." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, "Yeah, some old gray-headed," and this was before I lost weight. So I was like, "Tubby gray-headed guy." Yeah, here I am. But they thought that was a pretty cool story that here I was in there. It's between that and, being an equipment manager, it's cool to be able to see like Twitter, X, whatever we call it these days, Instagram, when those kids get, what's the word, exposure. When they show the managers putting the helmets on the helmets, the horns on the helmets, when they show HookEm, out there doing his thing or her thing, it's neat to know that I was a part of that, and maybe it wasn't as big as much of a publicized thing back then. We didn't have social media. Golly, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have the internet. No, we didn't have the interwebs back in the 1980s and 90s. But it's cool to be able to see those kids getting a little bit of, hey, these are the kids who do things behind the scenes. Hey, here's HookEm making appearances and playing with the kids and out there on Bevo Boulevard and all that kind of stuff. It's like, wow, neat to be a part of that tradition. And of course, my Aggie children and their friends, TU didn't have any traditions. I'm like, yeah, we may not. I said, we have traditions. They're just a little more traditional. Yeah, take that with you. Keep that one in your backpack.
That's amazing.
We have traditional traditions because we're the university. By golly.
Period.
Period.
That's all they need to know.
That's
The
right.
university.
With a capital T university.
And an EXAS after it.
That's right.
Well, to round us off, we're dying to know, what do you think our team's going to do this year?
You know, it's funny. A year ago, people asked, and I was like, "We're going 11-1," and I said, "And the one won't be the one we think." And the people are looking at me like, "What? What are you talking about?" I said, "We're going to beat Alabama out of Alabama," which the old Crimson Tide fan in me, I was having a hard, but I was like, "No, we should have beat them the year before." So we're going to go into their place and we're going to beat them. I said, now somebody else is going to come along and beat us that we don't think. And of course, in no way did I think the Sooners would make up 49 points in a year. But hey, it's a rivalry game. Those things happen. I think we got a shot to go 11-1. I really, people are like, oh, it's the SEC. It's a different deal. And I'm like, we beat the SEC champs by 10 at their place. We beat Georgia the time we played them when we played them last time. Well, but it's not the same thing every week. I go, what? Mississippi State, Kentucky, Vanderbilt. Like, I'm sorry, K-State, whip on any of those people. I'd put Iowa State and Okie State and Okie State. Listen to me, Okie Light, Oklahoma State. I'd put those teams against those teams anytime. Like Georgia, that's scary, but they got a new quarterback. They got to come to our place. Michigan, go to the big house. That's scary, but a lot of our guys, okay, they went to Tuscaloosa last year. What's the difference? And Michigan only returns one starter on either side of the football, and they have a new head coach. I mean, I know that guy coached a couple games last year when Harbaugh was suspended, but it's a different deal now. Sark, he's different. He's that guy. We're not worthy. He's worked through his struggles, and that just makes me a bigger fan of him. I was already a fan of his anyway, but he's just worked through a lot of things. He's grown up a lot. I mean, I watched him beat the Aggies when he played for BYU in the Holiday Bowl way back when, and he is just the wisdom that man has. And it's not just about X's and O's. It's about the culture. I'm not just talking about the football team. I'm talking about the whole university. It's funny. I went to UT with Matthew McConaughey. He and I were there at the same time. Okay. And I used to go out with somebody who said that he and I looked a lot alike when we were there. Now, he was taller, but I remember seeing a guy around campus thinking, golly, that guy looks just like me. Of course, he was a good deal taller than me, but and then I saw pictures of the two of us when we were both there at the same time, like, oh my gosh. And I wish I had that to share, but he's always what they call him, the minister of culture. And he doesn't. I
was gonna say he has your job, Chris. You should be the minister of culture.
I mean, he's busy. If they need somebody, I got time. I could do it. But
double.
I think that's right. Yeah, spitting image, right? His hair looks a little better than mine. But I think their leadership for the first time in a long time. Leadership for the University of Texas, and I'm not talking about just athletics. I'm talking about board of regents, president of the university, athletic director, coaching staff. There is an alignment there. Student body, there's an alignment there that has not been there in a long, long time. And people could say, well, it's because the football team's winning. It started before that. I think there's just a lot of things that are right about the University of Texas, or getting right, or getting better. And couldn't happen at a better time. We're going to the SEC. And I think the SEC is helping us in that way, because it's just more of a school spirit, more of a, identifying with the University of Texas and having pride in that. The eyes of Texas. I mean, I still, get a lump in my throat ever since I was a kid. My dad went there, and people say it means this, it means that. Well, I'm gonna tell you what the eyes of Texas means, and it means when you have a degree from the University of Texas, there's an expectation that you do it better than anybody else. And knowing that, then there's the eyes of the people in Texas are looking at you to be a leader. They're looking at you to be to do things the right way, to go about your business the right way. And it looks like we're getting back to what that's about. And it makes me feel good. You know, it's funny. How did my kids go to A&M? Well, part of it was, I was like, Austin just doesn't seem like a safe place for my kiddos. I mean, it didn't seem like a friendly, place like it was when we were there. And A&M just seemed like a better fit for them. And now I'm kind of like, well, maybe it might have been okay. Of course, my daughter just got her Aggie ring, so she's only got one more year to go. And my son's just starting. And of course, he and his sister are they're tight. Now, when they were younger, you wouldn't have believed it, but they're very tight and very close. And so they're making their own way. And part of me is like, you got to make your own way. You can't just go where dad went just because dad went there. You got to make your own way, and this is a good fit for you. But that being said, I'm very pleased as an alum, we call ourselves Texas X's, ex students. Very pleased as an alum of the University of Texas to see the direction that a lot of things are going there at the 40 acres, as we old people like to call it. And I'm excited to see what the future brings. Like I said, I think they go 11-1. I think they play. They make the playoff. I think they play for the conference championship. They make the playoff, and you never know what can happen. All you can ask for is a chance. And I know we're in good hands, and I'm excited to see it. I got my popcorn ready.
We all do. And honestly, what you just said gave me goosebumps, because I think, we got 4 alum here on the pod today. And I think we all feel that in terms of the responsibility that we hold going to the University of Texas. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for everything today. I mean, hopefully we see you at Little Woodrow's. We're going to hold you to it now.
You know what?
Check him out.
What's that?
So people in Cypress, Tomball, check him out.
All right. Well, you know what? I'm glad that we brought that up, because now I'm more motivated to go do it. I think that's something that needs to be done. We got to represent northwest side of town, Northwest Houston. So yeah, I'll tomorrow. I got tomorrow off, so I'll contact the ex-student association and see what I need to do to get that going.
We love it. Thank you so much again. We will write you once the episode's out. We appreciate you, Chris. Nice meeting you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.
HookEm.